Have you ever questioned your intelligence? Y'all, let's talk about it. Okay, so do y'all know the story of King Saul and David? Now, King Saul was on a mission to tear David to shreds, all because he was jealous. Now, remember little David, he was the one that fought against Goliath. And when King Saul found out about it, he said, "What do you think you're doing? You're too small. You're just a little boy trying to fight a man who's been in the army and who is a giant for years. What are you doing? But since you decide you're going to fight against Goliath, go ahead and put on my armor, at least to keep you a little bit safe." And David's like, "No, no, no, I'm going in the strength of the Lord. I'm going into that battle fighting the way that God has taught me to fight. I don't need your armor." And so by the end of that story, Saul was left asking who that guy David was, because he recognized something in David that he haven't seen before. So David is growing up. He's getting more popular among the people. He's doing more things for God. Da, da, da. And so David goes into battle. As he's walking into the city, everybody's shouting, "King Saul killed his thousands, but David killed his 10,000s." So Saul became even more jealous. He actually became irate. And then he said, "You know what? I think I'm going to be a little bit revengeful. I got to take care of this man because he ain't about to take my seat in the kingdom." You see the pride? Do you see the ego? King Saul, great representation of all that. So now we have it to where King Saul is so jealous of David that he has set out several times to kill him. So David is now on the run. Can you imagine living a life on the run? Looking over your shoulder, not knowing what's going on. Like, God, what is happening? Like, thankfully, God saved him every time. He always had a way of sending David a message so he can take cover. Even through King Saul's son, Jonathan, who was best friends, he warned him several times that, "Hey, my dad is trying to kill you." At first, he didn't believe it, but then he started to realize who his father was and the things that he was saying about David, and he realized that he really wouldn't kill this man. So God had a way of sending word to David every time to send him on protection. But let's go to 1 Samuel 24, and let's talk about how David spared Saul's life. Talking about a question of intelligence here, everybody that was with David was like, "Yo, what in the world are you thinking?" But David, he already knew what God had instructed him to do. So let's talk about it. Saul was in the cave. Bro had to go to the bathroom. David's men saw him. So they said in verse 4, they said, "Now is your opportunity." David's men whispered to him, "Today the Lord is telling you, I will certainly put your enemy into your power to do with you as you wish." So David crept forward and cut off a piece of the hem of Saul's robe. But then David's conscience began to bother him because he had cut Saul's robe. He said to his men, "The Lord forbid that I should do this to my Lord the king. I shouldn't attack the Lord's anointed one, for the Lord himself has chosen him." So David restrained his men and did not let them kill Saul. So you have these men that is on the run with David from Saul. And now they found an opportunity for David to be able to handle this man. David's like, "You know what? Nah, I'm not going to kill him." His man is like, really questioning his intelligence at this point, because he's like, "What do you mean you're not going to kill him? We're on a run from this dude." Let's go further. King Saul is coming out the cave. He relieved himself. He feel good, okay? Then David, he said, "Hey, King, let me tell you what just happened." In verse 9, it says, "Then he shouted to Saul, 'Why do you listen to the people who say I'm trying to harm you? This very day you can see with your own eyes that isn't true, for the Lord placed you at my mercy back there in the cave. Some of my men told me to straight up kill you, but I spared you, for I said I will never harm the king. He is the Lord's anointed one.'" That right there is intelligence. "Look, my father, at what I have in my hand. It is a piece of the hem of your robe. I cut it off, but I didn't kill you. That proves that I am not trying to harm you and that I have not sinned against you, even though you have been hunting for me to kill me. So I didn't even do unto you what you're doing unto me." That's wisdom and intelligence. David said, like, "Look, evil for evil, that ain't the way I roll. God's got me. He's been having me. He's going to keep having me. So whatever you feel like you need to do, you keep on doing it, sir. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to surrender to your behavior and start acting like you, because I already know what kind of man you are, and I know who God made me to be. So therefore, handle your business." That right there was from verse 13 to 15. But let's go just a little bit further. Okay, so Saul is now starting to cry because he's starting to realize that, yo, you really just spared my life and I'm literally trying to hunt you down for yours. 16 through 20, when David had finished speaking, Saul called back, is that really you, my son David? Then he started to cry. And he said to David, you are a better man than I am, for you have repaid me good for evil. Yes, you have been amazingly kind to me today. For when the Lord put me in a place where you could kill me, you didn't do it. Who else would let the enemy get away when he has had him in his power? May the Lord reward you for the kindness you have shown to me today. And now I realize you are surely going to be king, and that the kingdom of Israel will flourish under your rule. Y'all, you imagine your enemy turning to you and being like, yo, you are a better man than I am. I can recognize that God gave you an opportunity to do something to me, and you decide not to take it in honor of God. That right there is intelligence. That right there is wisdom. See, our world teaches us that eye for an eye is what we're supposed to do. Our world teaches us that revenge is the key. But God's teaching us mercy. He's teaching us forgiveness. And more importantly, He's teaching us to leave our troubles and our cares and our worries in God's hand, because God is going to solve them way better than we can. If David would have went and just killed the man, Saul would have never came to the revelation of God's mercy, true mercy, through David. See, we have to stop operating in the ways of the world, because the ways of the world is not getting us anywhere. When we really say and we really believe and we really tap into the identity that we are the king's kid, we ought to act like the king. Everything about God was about mercy. Even upon the wars and the tribulations that people went through in the Old Testament that people like to talk about, the reason why those things came is because they did not heed to the warning that God continuously gave them before the destruction came. We have to start acting like Christ, guys. There is no other way to put it. If you're questioning your intelligence, just take a look at your behavior and see, is my behavior like God's? Is my actions like God? Am I responding in the ways of God? If you're not, then yes, question your intelligence. But if you are responding in the ways of God, even in situations like this, where He had full opportunity to respond in a way that would have been justified to the world, don't question your intelligence. Don't do it. Don't do it. Allow God to continue to lead you, because when you are led by God, He gives you the best resolution. He doesn't just give you an answer, but He gives you resolution.